It's the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
U.S. Cellular is here to help you spread some holiday cheer. This is David Harrison of the Locked On Commanders podcast, and U.S. Cellular wants to help everyone get the gift of connection this holiday season. Already a customer? This applies to you too, because right now, new and current customers can get any phone, and I mean any phone, for free. Yes, really, for free. Sounds like it's time to make the switch. Spread holiday cheer far and wide this season with a new phone. Everyone can get the gift of connection at U.S. Cellular. Get any phone free today. U.S. Cellular, built for us. Terms apply. Visit uscellular.com for details.
A wild weekend in the NHL means an extra jam-packed of the Monday episode of the Locked On Fantasy Hockey Podcast. Waiver Wire Monday with all of our favorite targets. Laine out. Oettinger out, and that means opportunities and holes to fill. Let's get this money.
You're Locked On Fantasy Hockey, your daily podcast on fantasy hockey. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hockey heads, fantasy fanatics, and of course, degenerate gamblers, welcome back to your source. It's the Locked On Fantasy Hockey Podcast. Big Monday episode. We're always jam-packed on Mondays, but I got a lot to talk about. Steele's here to hold me down. Thank you for making us your first listen every single day. Today's episode is brought to you by Gametime. Make sure you download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off your first purchase. Steele, hat tricks, Jack Hughes doing his thing, injuries, all kinds of exciting NHL action over the last couple of days. And we're going to kick it off by talking about Jake Oettinger. He goes down on Friday. A little bit of an awkward look in play. He's a number one goaltender, Steele, and a Vezina threat on a good team. We got to talk about it. Patrik Laine. We'll keep this one short and sweet. Shocker, hurt again. Look, we're not going to poke fun at a guy for getting hurt. But what we will talk about, Steele, is how much of a joke this guy's career is starting to turn into in terms of fantasy. I'm already heated. And then, of course, waiver wire targets. A lot of interesting situations that are popping off. Monday's bets. I'm going to keep it tight, Steele. We got a busy, busy day. Families are in town. Happy birthday to Mama Rodin, by the way. Big shout out there. Let's get it, though, Steele. Let's talk Oettinger and then Laine quickly. What's your take on these situations?
Yeah, with Jake Oettinger, I think the Dallas Stars are, it's obviously unfortunate to lose your starting goaltender, but I really like Scott Wedgwood as a backup goaltender.
Me too.
I think he's very dependable. He can come in and take over for games, and really, he's one of those guys who just, again, like I talk about James Reimer, he gives you 110%. I see the same thing from Scott Wedgwood, and one of those other guys from Arizona Coyote goaltenders that we've seen kind of prosper up in the NHL over the past couple of seasons, and he's a great backup. So it's unfortunate they lose Jake Oettinger. I know they've been this season compared to the last few seasons. They've tried to reduce his start, the games he starts. Try to make sure he's not as worn out by the time the playoffs come around. But obviously, you don't want to get him injured. You don't want to see him injured. But I can look towards Scott Wedgwood and have all accountability, reliability, and dependability that he's going to come in and do the job, because the Stars are one of the best teams in the Western Conference right now.
They are, and unfortunately for Oettinger owners, me being one of them, the Dallas Stars still get wins, but he's been allowing quite a few goals over the last number of games.
He hasn't been his best, for sure.
He hasn't been his best, but I'm not going to actually discredit his value. To me, he's still right up there. He's not in that echelon of Hellebuck, Vasilevsky, and then I'd throw Sorokin and probably Shesterkin in there. That's like my 1A, but he's in the 1B. He's right there in the 1B in terms of fantasy options. And he goes down, it's going to be a hole to fill. Right away, Scott Wedgwood's getting the run out. And you mentioned his reliability as a number 2 goaltender. Right now, he's going to be the number 1 goaltender. So if you need a fill-in this week for a goalie option, he's out there. I think I saw 3% on ESPN, a little higher on Yahoo. Go out there and grab yourself some Scotty Wedgwood, because he's solid. Patrik Laine, not solid. Clearly, this is a guy who is a little bit made of glass. I'm not making fun of him. It happens in professional sports. We're human beings. Not everyone's as durable as others. 6-week busted clavicle. He gets hurt against the Leafs. This is a player, Steele, that for fantasy fanatics is probably right up there on the list of players that drive you wild. You mentioned that it's the guy you drop, he scores 6 in a week. Then you add him, he gets hurt. This is the same song and dance with Patrik Laine. And just when things actually, this Columbus Blue Jackets team, say what you will, Steele, because I actually will talk about them at waiver wire in a sec. There are some interesting young offensive pieces. And if Laine's not careful, pretty soon they're going to play him right out of his minutes.
Yeah, and it's just so unfortunate to see this player go down almost every other game now. Like I went on a little bit of a rant on Twitter the other day after this injury, and it's just so frustrating because he was sick for 3 days. He comes back and scores a couple of goals, gets a couple of assists, and then he gets injured with this, out for 6 weeks with a fractured clavicle. In his last 5 games that he's actually played in, he was starting to heat up. He had 4 points in his last 5 games that he's played. But it's the unreliability. Again, we talk about guys who just seem to get injured all the time. You cannot depend on them. And this is one of those players. And you're right. His career, as much as we want to see this player succeed and prosper in the NHL, his career is going down the drain at this point because he doesn't matter what he does and how serious, it doesn't matter how serious these injuries are. Yeah. He can't get rid of them. He's always getting injured. And for fantasy owners out there, it's a struggle. I've got him in, I believe, the casual listener league that we're in. And I'm at a point where it's just super frustrating. But like you said, it's one of those players where you drop him, and when he comes back, he just pops off for like 7 points in 3 games or something like that. So Patrik Laine has just been one of those fantasy players that has just been really getting under my skin lately because I want to see him succeed, but this injury bug, it's been with him since he was drafted in the NHL.
Time for him to, honestly, if you are a fantasy GM now, this is the last chance. We say this sometimes. That was the nail in his coffin. Yeah, the offensive upside, his peripherals have been down as well. Hey, he started his career on an impressive heater. It's more of a name now, and I think that's sometimes how we get caught up with these fantasy pieces. It's an attractive name. He's got a good shot. He can score when he's healthy. You got to just mention it. 6 weeks, he's out. You got to be dropping this guy. I wouldn't even honestly put him on the IR at this point, Steele, although watch him come back after everyone's written him off. But I'm not even going to speculate that because for me now it's an absolute must drop. Probably would have been already, but I understand why you haven't. Let's hit this waiver wire because, look, you and I break down waiver wires every single Monday. It's important. We've talked all about it. Good GM can make the moves and really augment their team. Right now, I'm getting beat up in our competitive league, Steele. Casual leagues looking a little bit better. It's been a tough couple of weeks. Hey, I come on here and preach. Don't let your personal life to get in the way. And there, look at what happens. You get busy and I slack and now I'm hurting. Anyhow, Gabriel Vilardi is getting a top line look on a really good Winnipeg Jets team. And if you weren't buying into the Winnipeg Jets before, I'd be buying into them now because they are really cooking. Kyle Connor goes down, Steele. And I'm pretty sure, because I just wanted to bring this up. Kyle Connor goes down. They beat the LA Kings 5-2, and then they beat the Colorado Avalanche 6-2. This is a good team. Vilardi's getting a look on that top line, and have a look. 5 points in his last 2 games, 6. 3 goals, 3 assists. He's playing on the top line with Scheifele and Ehlers. That's all you need to say. I'll leave it at this too. I wrote it right here. 37% on ESPN, 22 on Yahoo. Go out there and get yourself some Gabe Vilardi this week for sure.
Well, I was going to save him for last, but since you started off, I'll just continue the conversation. I also have Gabe Vilardi on this waiver wire targets for this week, rostered at 22%, like you said, on Yahoo. He was injured at the beginning of the season against his former team in the LA Kings in a knee-on-knee collision with Blake Lizotte. He comes back after missing 16 games and puts on a clinic to start the holiday season. 9 points in 11 games so far, a +7, 28 shots. The other peripherals will start to come as he gets more and more into the game. But like you said, 6 points in his last 2 games. And how about a 4-point night against his former team, the LA Kings? And man, you were right before we started this, before the season started. Winnipeg is looking dangerous right now. And they've even been doing this without Kyle Connor the last couple of games. We know what they look like with him in the lineup.
Yep.
It's unreal what Winnipeg is doing. I did not expect this from them. I saw a little bit of a regression, like we talked about, from Josh Morrissey, maybe even Mark Scheifele, but they found their chemistry, they found their confidence, and they're rolling right now in their division. 3 games this upcoming week for the Winnipeg Jets. They're on an Atlantic Division tour. Montreal Canadiens, Detroit Red Wings, and Boston Bruins this upcoming week.
Hey, Gabe Vilardi, good Kingston, Ontario boy, good Windsor Spitfire as well. Shout out to a really good situation. Speaking of which, Pavel Zacha goes down. Morgan Geekie is up in Boston.
Yeah.
I don't know if you saw the David Pastrnak shenanigans, but I'm pretty sure he's going to get a suspension. I don't know. I don't know if he's going to get a hearing. It looked like it's suspendable. I don't know. Maybe we can talk about that on tomorrow's episode. But if Morgan Geekie gets any look in that top line, I actually don't know what the long-term. I think Zacha is going to be back sooner than later. I don't know for sure, so don't quote me on that. But right now, Morgan Geekie getting the opportunity, minutes up, Steele, playing on the top line. If Pastrnak is out this week, that changes my take here. I'm less attracted to Geekie if Pastrnak does face any kind of supplementary penalties. But Geekie up to playing over almost 19 minutes a night over the last couple of games, Steele. He's got 3 points, a goal, and 2 assists. This opportunity alone, if you need a forward, also he throws around his body. I love Morgan Geekie's game. We looked at this player a lot in this lead up to the season as maybe getting an opportunity. I'm going to stop talking. If Morgan Geekie and Pastrnak are playing together this week, he's out there in all leagues, 3% on both Yahoo and ESPN. Go ahead and take a look at Morgan Geekie.
Yeah, I think you might as well have to at this point. Especially we've talked about a few of those Boston Bruin players. You know, Charlie Coyle's been a little bit better. I talked about James Van Riemsdyk, but Morgan Geekie's getting an opportunity right now. And you talked about him, back in the offseason, the summertime a lot. Yeah. So he's making the most out of this opportunity, and the Boston Bruins doesn't matter what's going on in their lineup. They lose 2 of their best players in Patrice Bergeron and David Krejci. And they continue to roll with some of these other guys that they filled in.
Here we go.
It is what it is with the Boston Bruins, but Morgan Geekie is definitely a solid look for this upcoming week.
Appreciate that. We don't need to go down the sad train. It's the holiday season, ladies and gentlemen, and we're trying to keep things positive. That's why we're going to roll on to the rest of our favorite waiver wire targets for the upcoming week to make sure your team is in tip-top shape. We're also going to wrap up with Monday's big-time bets. We got a 5-game betting board, but today's episode is brought to you by Gametime. When you're buying tickets to your favorite event, concerts, theater, and especially sports, it doesn't have to be stressful, and it should never be. Been to the gate, the scan code doesn't work, the QR code isn't working. It's stressful. With Gametime, you get the last-minute deals, flash deals, zone deals, and it's easy to find and buy tickets for every kind of event in your area, and it's never stressful. They have a lowest price guaranteed, event cancellation protection, and job loss protection. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Gametime. Steele and I are loving the Gametime app for getting NHL seats, so make sure you download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Create an account, redeem code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off. Download the Gametime app today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed.
Joe DiBiase of the Locked On Sabres podcast. Butcher Box has all you need for a tasty, stress-free holiday season with high-quality protein delivered to your door. Sometimes the best gifts are the ones you give yourself, and Butcher Box is here to help you treat yourself to more delicious, wholesome meals. Sign up today at butcherbox.com/NHL and use the code NHL to get free chicken wings for a year. That's 3 pounds of free-range organic chicken wings free in every order for a year when you sign up at butcherbox.com/NHL and use the code NHL.
And thank you so much for making the Locked On Fantasy Hockey Podcast your first listen every single day. Big news from Locked On. They've launched the first ever national sports 24/7 streaming channel on YouTube. Locked On Sports Today is here for you 24/7, covering the top sports stories of the day with local experts of Locked On, plus the national shows covering every single league. So make sure you go to Locked On Sports Today on YouTube and subscribe to the first ever national sports 24/7 streaming channel. And thank you so much for tuning in for today's episode with Flip and I. Please hit the subscribe, the follow button, and a 5-star review. We appreciate all that love and support you show us every single day. That's why every Monday we've got the waiver wire targets for the upcoming week for all of our listeners out there. I've got a couple of honorable mentions before I get to my second player that I want to talk about.
I love the honorable mention, Steele. Also, by the way, I did want to tease the new segment you and I are going to be breaking down each week. Start, stash, or cut. Steele and I are going to be looking at 3 trending fantasy players. I believe we're going to do it. We're going to do it every Thursday, Steele.
Every
we'll pick the date for sure. But I think Thursdays, stash, start, and cut. We're going to be taking a look at 3 trending fantasy pieces. So make sure you're tuned in for Thursday's episodes. I had to get that plug in there, Steele, because we're getting real serious on the channel.
Got to get the plugs in all week long. But yeah, a few honorable mentions before I get to my next player here. First of all, just trying to think outside the box a little bit, looking at some guys under 10%.
Love that. Me too.
Dakota Joshua of the Vancouver Canucks. 6 goals, 11 points so far this season.
Big
32
lad.
shots, 90 hits, 17 blocks. I want to mention his name because he's been real hot lately. He's got 4 points in his last 3 games. So I just want to mention him. And he's getting it done in the bottom 6.
Respect.
Also, maybe you have this player because I think you might have alluded to it. But Yegor Sharongovich of the Columbus Blue Jackets, 8 goals, 12 points. He's on a 4-game point streak, 4-game goal streak, and 7-point total in that point streak right now. He's been bumped up to that makeshift first line because they've got a ton of injuries. Boone Jenner, Jack Roslovic, obviously Patrik Laine, all on the IR. So that top line, it seems like it's all Russians or Europeans from over there. So
I think they're all Russian.
I think they might all be Russians. But yeah, it's makeshift first line for the Columbus Blue Jackets, but they've looked really good so far and they're getting it done. So I wanted to give a shout out to those 2 players, but I also want to talk about another Yegor, but it's Yegor Sharongovich of the Calgary Flames, rostered at 23%.
Couple
right
of
now.
Igors on this list.
He's up 22% on Yahoo from last week alone, and that just speaks to how great he's been playing this stretch of December. Has really started to find his confidence and his comfort in finding chemistry on that top line with Lindholm and Andrew Mangiapane. 11 goals, 19 points in 31 games, 9 points in his last 8 games for the Calgary Flames. Currently on a 5-game goal streak. He's got 63 shots, shooting at 17.5% right now. And the Flames got 3 games this week. Florida Panthers, Anaheim Ducks, and the LA Kings. And they've been playing a lot better lately. And Yegor Sharongovich, again, just one of those guys that the Calgary Flames wanted in that Tyler Toffoli trade. They wanted to get a little bit younger. They wanted to start this rebuild a little bit, get some younger players. And Yegor Sharongovich is finally getting comfortable in Calgary, and he's feeling himself right now the month of December.
Finally getting something out of that trade, which obviously Flames fans are much maligned for that one. And anyway, Yegor, shout out to the Yegors. Yeah, Sharongovich, or kind of butchering that name, but anyway, Yegor number 1. Playing on that line is very interesting. Voronkov and Marchenko, and they are all young, good Russian players. That's a top 2020 pick for the Columbus Blue Jackets. So many good young picks for this team. You can't help but feel that, look, all 3 of those players, they have to round out the rest of their game defensively and actually, maybe actually beef up on the size a little bit. But there is a lot to like, and I had to just give him some love. 2% on Yahoo, 1% on ESPN for Sharongovich, and Sabres, Caps, and Leafs this week for the Jackets. So I'm liking that. Very quickly, Steele, we mentioned Scotty Wedgwood. That deserves a real look, so that's off my list as well. I gave a shout-out to Vilardi. I haven't had the numbers on Jordan Kyrou, but just right before we came on, I caught the highlights again of that Blues game. And I caught all of his media. I don't know if you saw those interviews. Something was up there with Berube and him. Something didn't smell right. I don't know what, and I'm not going to speculate, but I'm going to look at Jordan Kyrou, and I wrote about this last week after the firing. Sometimes it really does light a fire under a young player's butt. And maybe if they weren't getting along, this is what Kyrou needed. He's probably owned very high, especially after the weekend where he looked really good. I just wanted to say, if he is out there in any of your leagues, I'm not even looking at their schedule or nothing. I think Jordan Kyrou turns the page, and that's what I saw over the weekend. So I just wanted to throw that out as my honorable mention. And lastly, this is your boy, another good Russian player, Ivan Barbashev, getting top-line look with Mark Stone and Jack Eichel. By the way, Mark Stone, absolute stud. Put him on any team and slap the C on him, and they're a cup threat. Anyway, Barbashev, 6'1", little bit of a guy who does a little bit of everything. 7 goals, 7 assists, 53 shots on net, 14 PIMs. He gets a block shot, 3 hits last game. I like the Vegas Golden Knights schedule as well. Let me bring that up. Lightning, Canes, and Panthers. On paper, that's like, okay, it might be a tough one. All 3 of those teams, aside from maybe the Panthers, are going through it of late. So I'll take Barbashev, 63% on ESPN, 46 on Yahoo, and I'll leave it at this, Steele, because I'm pretty sure he's feeling it right now, and that was the last reason, because he looked good on the highlights. 2 goals in his last 2 games, 5 points in his last 4 games. Have a look at your boy, Ivan Barbashev.
Gotta love some Barbie out there. Ivan Barbashev getting it done all over the ice. He's getting a good opportunity on that top line. Like
that's it. That's just it. Loving the deployment.
I've got one final player before we move on to big time bets where the money is made. I did not think that I'd be mentioning Colton Sissons this much as I have this season, but I got to talk about Colton Sissons again. 8% rostered right now. He's been an absolute workhorse this entire season for Nashville and has really given them and fantasy hockey GMs a nice surprise with his play. 10 goals, 16 points in 31 games, 20 penalty minutes, 2 power play goals, 3 shorthanded goals, 2 game-winning goals, 54 shots, 45 hits. This guy's been doing it all, but he's been a perennial bottom 6 player for Nashville.
Bottom 6 beauty.
Bottom 6 beauty, very dependable, and all of a sudden he has an extra gear that no one's known about, and he's playing his heart out now for the Nashville Predators. Yeah. You know, a veteran who's been with them for a long time, playing on the third line with Cody Glass and Trennan, but even playing on the third line, he's on the first power play unit.
Yes,
he's on the first penalty kill unit, and he's already gotten a few good looks. Like I said, 3 shorthanded goals and 2 power play goals. He's capitalizing on all of these opportunities. 3 games this upcoming week for the Nashville Predators, Vancouver Canucks, Philadelphia Flyers, and Dallas Stars. So a little bit of a tougher schedule for them this upcoming week heading into Christmas. But the Nashville Predators have been very solid over the last month and a bit. They're in the first wild card spot. I believe their record is 19-12 or 18-13, something along those lines. I don't have the standings right up in front of me.
I'll confirm for
you. But they've been great. They're in that
18-13-0.
18-13-0. They're in that first wild card spot, and they're getting it done right now from a lot of the guys that they've acquired this offseason, as well as some of their veterans and their young players. So they're feeling themselves. I'm not completely sold that they're in rebuild stage right now, because they're firing up the standings right now.
2 points back of the division lead. That Central Division is tighter than a drum, Steel. Even the St. Louis Blues are only 7 points back technically. So, and if you want to get serious, and then the Wild are only 3 points back of that. So 7-1, by the time we're talking about, spring rolling around, this could be a very different looking division. By the way, Poyle, general manager of all time, masterclass. Look at this team that he leaves. Just when you're ready to count out the Preds, some of these good young pieces, Evangelista, some of the guys they bring in, Colton Sissons even. What a beauty, just playing his heart out. You mentioned the deployment on that top power play unit. Week to week, this is where you as a fantasy GM, doesn't matter that it's Colton Sissons. He's getting deployed on a team playing well on the top power play unit, and he's scoring. Add him. Doesn't matter if it says 6%, 7%, 8%. Does it make sense? Is the deployment matching? Is it a good schedule? Those line up. Take a shot. It's worth the risk. That's how you get this loot. Speaking of which, take us to bets, pal.
Big time bets right around the corner. But first, this episode is brought to you by FanDuel. That's where you can be placing all of your bets right now this upcoming week and for the future. As the weather gets colder, the NFL offers stay hot on FanDuel. Right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 moneyline bet. That's $150 in bonus bets if your team wins. And if you've been thinking about joining FanDuel, which we urge you to do so because it's the best app out there, there's no better time to get into the action. The app is super safe and easy to use. There's a wide range of betting options, including spreads, player props, over-unders, and of course, the same game parlay that we love here on the Locked On Fantasy Hockey Podcast. So visit FanDuel.com/LockedOn and kick off the NFL season right. FanDuel, official partner of the NFL.
Hey everyone, Chris from Locked On Avalanche here. If you like using debit over credit, I just learned about something that's definitely a game changer. Discover Cashback Debit. It's a checking account that rewards everyone with cash back on everyday purchases, which means you can get cash back on NHL tickets or head-to-toe hockey gear to make this season a total win. Check out eligibility and terms at discover.com/cashbackdebit. Discover Bank, member FDIC.
And thank you so much for making the Locked On Fantasy Hockey Podcast your first listen every single day. Continue to hit the subscribe, leave a follow button, and a 5-star review We do really appreciate all that love and support you show us. Monday through Friday, 7 o'clock in the morning is when you can find all of our episodes. And Flip, if you don't mind, I'd really just like to start off with this first pick that I've got going into Monday night.
Yeah, let's have a week.
This has not been the start the Detroit Red Wings have been looking for since Patrick Kane made his debut 4 games ago. I believe they haven't won a single game with him in the lineup yet. That's all going to change Monday night. I'm taking the Red Wings on the money line against the Anaheim Ducks, who have been probably the worst team for the last month and a half. They're on a 5-game losing streak. They're 1-9-0 in their last 10 games. They have been doo-doo, like you said.
Yes.
I'm taking the Red Wings on the money line. Patrick Kane's going to get his first win of the season with his new club. That's
he's got one. Yeah, he's got one, I believe.
Yeah.
But I'm with you on this take. I actually have the Red Wings as well. The odd is going to be heavy for the Wings at home. Also, I think when you look at the head-to-head, did you mention the head-to-head? The head-to-head is actually split pretty evenly. 5-2-3 for the Red Wings head-to-head against the Ducks. I'm loving this angle, though, because look at those games the Ducks are losing.
Yeah.
They are, like, I know that it was a 1-goal game against the Islanders, and it was a 1-goal game against the Blackhawks, but those are tough games to lose. My goodness me. And then they get pumped by the Rangers. And looking at their injury steal, and I know Zegras has been out for a while, and Jamie Drysdale, fantasy-wise, has disappointed. Zegras, Drysdale, and McTavish, those are 3 very important young pieces for this team. And the second that they come back, because McTavish is close, and I believe Zegras and Drysdale are right around the corner, I might be taking a different look at this Ducks team, because at the start of the season, some of these good young pieces, including McTavish, I think he might be the key to that whole forward success, because him and Vetrano had it going. Anyway, I'm going to stop. Red Wings, money line, gonna hammer it. I'm going to do a parlay with these 3, though, Steele, because I'm taking a couple of home favorites, so I'm not feeling the odds, but the Red Wings are my first pick. My second pick, if you don't mind, I'll just rattle off both of mine real quick, because, we got to get to biz, as our buddy Blake says. Jets money line at home. The Montreal Canadiens have a good record in their last 10 against the Winnipeg Jets, and that's what I wanted to mention. I got to show them love. 7-2-1 the Canadiens hold headed into this one in their last 10 against the Jets. But I don't care, because we mentioned it earlier. This Winnipeg Jets team is for real. They have big bodies, balanced scoring, good blue line, maybe a bit underrated. Maybe that bottom couple, any blue line is going to need some love. If that's what you have to address in Winnipeg, it might be that. And one of the best goalies in the business, if not the best goaltender in the Western Conference. So, and they're beating Colorado and LA handily. Jets, money line, feeling that one steal. And lastly, my favorite bet on this show is Sidney Crosby anytime assist. They got pumped on Saturday night, and we're going to talk about the Toronto Maple Leafs, I think, this week, because maybe we need to start paying attention. I'm not drinking the Kool-Aid just yet, Steele, but the boys are rolling. Anyhow, lock of the night, Minnesota rolls into Pittsburgh. Usually, Sidney Crosby bounces back in a big way. He doesn't like to lose, and he doesn't like to be embarrassed. So I'm taking this angle. I don't know if I want to pick Minnesota or Pittsburgh. I think this is going to be a good, close game. However, and I'm done talking. I'm going to let you have yours. My bad. 22 career regular season games against the Wild for Sid. 22 assists and 10 goals. Sidney Crosby, anytime assist, lock of the night. And we're going to have to start keeping a running tally on this deal, because I swear down, every time I bet Sid anytime Apple, it hits.
It's 100% accuracy. Every time you pick Sidney Crosby anytime assist, it hits every single night. So, hey, you got to go with what works for you. And
back
that
to the well,
working.
baby.
Back to the well all the time. 2 picks, last 2 picks for me. I am going to take the Wild on the money line on the road against the Pittsburgh Penguins. They've just been playing really good. Pittsburgh Penguins have not been great this season. And ever since they fired Dean Evison, just like we saw from the Edmonton Oilers as well.
Good point.
Head coach change has really rejuvenated and put all of their players head on straight and focused up. So I'm going to take the Wild on the money line at plus 100.
Yeah, I don't hate it.
The Pittsburgh Penguins, but I'm also going to go to that Jets game, but I'm going to take the Jets on the puck line against the Canadiens at plus 120 right now. And just because of what I've seen from them over the last couple of games against top tier teams in the LA Kings and Colorado Avalanche.
Exactly.
This is going to be another good test for them. Like you said, Canadians don't really give them, they do give them a little bit of a difficult match between when they play each other. So I'm going to take the Jets on the puck line just because of how they've been playing the last week, especially without Kyle Connor too. So Gabe Vilardi back in the lineup. Let's see what he can do this upcoming stretch. Thank you so much for making the Locked On Fantasy Hockey Podcast your first listen every single day. And again, go check out Locked On YouTube. They've launched the first ever national sports 24/7 streaming channel on YouTube. They're here for you 24/7, 7 days a week, any time of the day you can tune in. So make sure you go to Locked On Sports today, YouTube, and subscribe to the first ever national sports 24/7 streaming channel. And thank you again so much for tuning in for today's episode with Flip and I. Have a great day. Good luck with all your bets out there, and we shall see you back here again tomorrow.
Peace.
Score early this NFL season with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 moneyline bet. That's $150 if your team wins. If you've been thinking about joining FanDuel, there's no better time to get in on the action. The app is super easy to use. There's a wide range of betting options, including spreads, player props, over-unders, and more. So visit FanDuel.com/lockedon and kick off the NFL season. FanDuel, official partner of the NFL. Buying tickets to see your favorite NHL team shouldn't be stressful. That's where Gametime comes in. Gametime is the place for last-minute ticket deals. Forget planning months in advance. Gametime has deals on tickets right up to the day of the event. Get images of your seat before you buy so you know exactly what to expect when you arrive. You can buy tickets in a matter of seconds, 2 taps, and you're set. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use the code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, redeem code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off. Download Gametime today. Last-minute tickets, lowest price, guaranteed.
At Discount Tire, we know how valuable your time is around the holidays. Get 30% shorter average wait time when you buy and book online at DiscountTire.com, so you can spend more time with friends and family this holiday season. Discount Tire, let's get you taken care of.